Hello, my name is Shay Cassidy, and today I will be presenting to you pastoralism poetry. The pastoral tradition refers to a lineage of creative works in which rural life and landscapes are idealized rather than presenting a realistic view. Common topics of pastoral poetry include love and seduction, the value of poetry, death and mourning, and the corruption of the city or court versus the purity of idealized country life. However, as the pastoral theme of poetry conveys rural life, there have also been adaptations of the pastoral tradition in which sophisticated urban poets would portray rural life fantasies and misconceptions. Descriptions of undemanding rustic chores, such as watching over sheep from atop a sunny hill, functioned for some poets as critiques of city life. The seemingly perfect leisure of outdoor solitude also embodies erotic fantasies, as shepherds are portrayed chasing after pretty young girls and abandoning all their responsibilities. The pastoral tradition can be traced back to Hesiod, a Greek oral poet active between 750 and 650 BCE, which was roughly the same time as Homer. The pastoral theme of poetry really picked up around the time of the Italian Renaissance, right when several poets had begun gaining inspiration from Virgil, a famous pastoralism poet. The author of pastoralism poetry that I will be exploring today is Virgil. Publius Virgilius Maro, or better known as Virgil in English, was born on October 15, 70 BCE in a farming village in northern Italy known as Andes. Following the pastoral tradition, Virgil spent 7 years writing his great work, the Georgics. It is more than 2,000 words long and is divided into 4 books. The poem that I will be reading and explicating is an excerpt of Virgil's first Georgic. When spring begins and the ice-locked streams begin to flow down from the snowy hills above, and the clouds begin to crumble in the breeze, the time has come for my groaning ox to drag my heavy plow across the fields, so that the plow blade shines as the furrow rubs against it. Not till the earth has been twice plowed, so twice exposed to sun and twice to coolness, will it yield what the farmer prays for. Then will the barn be full to bursting with the gathered grain, and yet if the field's unknown and new to us, before our plow breaks open the soil at all, it's necessary to study the ways of the winds and the changing ways of the skies, and also to know the history of the planting in that ground, what crops will prosper there and what will not. In one place grain grows best, in another vines. Another is good for the civilization of trees, and still another the grain turns green unbidden. Now that we have read the poem, we can begin to explicate it. When the first line says, "When spring begins and the ice-locked streams begin," the speaker is saying that spring is beginning. The streams that were locked in ice during the winter are now beginning to unthaw. To flow down from the snowy hills above, the unthawing streams are starting to flow down the hills. And the clouds begin to crumble in the breeze. Clods, which are clumps of earth or clay, are starting to break apart by forces of the wind. The time has come for my groaning ox to drag my heavy plow across the fields, so that. The speaker is saying that it's time to plow the fields and get them ready to plant crops. The plow blade shines as the furrow rubs against it. The blade of the plow shines as it digs a furrow, which is a deep trench made for planting seeds. Not till the earth has been twice plowed, so twice exposed to sun and twice to coolness will. By plowing the earth twice, exposing, then re-exposing the earth to the sun and the elements, makes the soil very fertile and able to yield healthy crops. It yield what the farmer prays for, then will the barn. The fertile soil will be able to yield healthy crops, which is what the farmer is hoping for. Be full to bursting with the gathered grain. The barn will be bursting with all of the grain collected. And yet, if the field's unknown and new to us, before our plow breaks open the soil at all, it's necessary to study the ways of the winds. Although, if the farmer is unfamiliar with the land and hasn't begun his plowing processes, he needs to familiarize himself with the way the land works, including how the wind blows and the weather patterns, and the changing ways of the skies, and also to know the history of the planting in that ground, what crops will prosper there and what will not. The speaker is saying that the farmer should also know the history of the land, what was previously planted, what grows well, and what doesn't. In one place, grain grows best, and another, vines. In some places of the land, grain may grow best, and in other places, vines may grow best. Another is good for the civilization of trees, and still another, the grain turns green unbidden. And in other places, the grain may flourish without much work at all.